So, good evening to all. Welcome to today's session. I would like to welcome the guest for today, Dr. Udaya Simha N G. Dr. Udaya Simha N G, a doctorate is a doctorate in animal and environment law. He holds academic experience of 12 years and an NGO experience of 2 years. Currently, he is working as a director applied animal advocacy certificate program at People for Animals Public Policy Foundation, New Delhi. Dr. Dr. Uday is also a former honorary animal welfare officer, Animal Welfare Board of India. I would welcome you. I would like to welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav.
Sir, I am Advocate Mehul. I am joining from Gaurav sir's ID. So
Thank
sorry.
you, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. So before we begin, I would like to thank Possible Education for giving me this opportunity to talk to you all on one of the most unconventional topics out there with respect to animal experimentation. Before I begin, I would like to share my screen. Just give me a moment. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One important aspect wherein I would like to draw the attention of the audience here is with respect to AWBI versus Nagaraja. I'm pretty sure that some of you might have heard about this particular case called, Animal Welfare Board of India versus Nagaraja before the Honorable Supreme Court. This particular judgment was delivered in the year 2014. The reason being, I talking about this particular case before I start my, presentation basically is for the first time ever in our country, the Honorable Supreme Court of India brought in animals under the larger ambit of Article 21 of the Constitution. Now, when I say larger ambit of the Constitution of India, with respect to Article 21, please remember that the court did not say that the animals have right to life, but they came out with this particular word called as animals do have intrinsic worth. Now, can any one of you please tell me what do you mean by the term intrinsic worth with respect to animals? Are they sentient beings? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any participant would like to pitch in and say what do you understand by the term intrinsic worth?
Intrinsic uh, value.
Go ahead.
Intrinsic in itself is like I think by their own or like naturally in itself they have this type like we don't want to give them or something. Inherently they have that.
Okay. So it is something which is inherent, something which is given by the nature, right? And how feasible it is for us the humans to snatch away the intrinsic worth which is basically embedded by the nature. See, I'm not bringing in here the concept of god given. No, I'm bringing in here the concept of nature given, right? Because animals are those species wherein they can feel pain, they can express their emotions just like us the humans. Ultimately, we the humans have a different method of expression, expressing our feelings, whether it may be anger, or pain or happiness or whatsoever. Similar is the case with animals. They have different methods, as such. Now, 2014 judgment is really important for us, before we delve into the said topic. Now, the discussion started, amongst legal luminaries, academics, researchers, so on and so forth, that do we mean to say that the hereafter the animals will be protected under the ambit of 21, so that animals will not be, used for, purpose of food? This was the primary question. Number two, so should we not be, including, should we be or should we not include animals under animal experimentation, be it any animal, including laboratory animals, because the court has said animals have intrinsic worth? This was another question. Now, there were never ending questions, because when we talk about animals being brought under the larger ambit of Article 21, we are placing animals at par with human beings in the eyes of the Constitution. This is what a general understanding was in the minds of people. Now, this was partially overruled in 2015 judgment. Again, in 2015, a case was posted before the Honorable Supreme Court of India with respect to AWBI versus Union of India. In AWBI versus Union of India, the court partially overruled the judgment which was rendered by the same court. It said that though animals have intrinsic worth, that doesn't mean that we are placing animals at par with human beings in the eyes of the Constitution. Now, all thanks to one particular instance with respect to this particular judgment being pronounced was Jallikattu judgment. All of us know what, at least few of us know what exactly happened in Jallikattu. Let me not delve into the entire history of Jallikattu, but a bits and pieces here and there I would like to just give some information for your consumption. Is Jallikattu basically, states like state of Tamil Nadu, state of Maharashtra, and state of Karnataka, from where I belong to, is one of those, say, so-called sports. Again, I'm being a bit sarcastic here, because Jallikattu, unfortunately, basically, people think that it is a sport, but it is not. It is a sheer cruelty. It was a question of, say, practice on one hand. It was a question of, belief on the other hand. It was a question of necessity on the other hand. Because when I use the term necessity, I would like to draw your attention here. The entire Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960, basically, especially with respect to Section 11 of the said Act, which is a central piece of legislation, talks about infliction of unnecessary pain towards animals. Now, when we talk about inflicting unnecessary pain, is there something called as necessary pain? That we will have to think about and try to bring in a connection with respect to today's topic. Now, before I further get into today's topic, I think a couple of them have already joined. I can see around 33, 34 people here who have joined. I would like you to watch, say, a small clipping, which is around 4 to 5 minutes of clips. And once we watch that clipping, I request sincerely to the participants to come out and tell us that what exactly was the thought process which started running when you actually watch that particular clip. Let me just share my screen, and eventually you can watch the said clipping. So please confirm if the video is visible, because I cannot see the screen as I'm playing the entire video, whole screen.
The video is visible.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, is there audio to the video? It is not audible.
No, there is no audio to the video, so
Okay.
it's just the visual representation.
Okay.
Okay. So I think all of you did watch this particular clipping. Now I'm pretty sure that there should be or there will be some thought process, which has started running in your minds. Can any one of you please, share it with us? There is nothing called as right thought process or a wrong thought process. What matters is ultimately a thought process. Can any one of you please?
Sir, may I?
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
uh, like people are actually doing forced experiments on animals. They just want to do certain kind of experiment and they are doing on animals rather than so because they cannot do on humans. This is the first thought process that comes to the mind.
Right, right. The main idea here is, I'm not sitting here before you to advocate, that the experimentation should be done on humans but not animals. But again, what kind of experiments, under what conditions, what kind of pain is being inflicted, that needs to be, taken care, because the entire topic of today's discussion is ethical approaches in the through the lens of IP, right? Others, anyone who would like to say pitch in?
Sir, can I?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Basically, the approach by which the animals are being used for testing of the medicines or for testing of the any like API they are making, the approach is a bit cruel to them, and the way they are infused with the sedatives, hypnotics, and the way means it's not ethical. Even their it's not ethical to their lives also. The approach here is way too wide. Like even in the video, the for the wound healing of the mini pigs, their whole skin was like exfoliated without giving hypnotics or without making the pigs unconscious.
Right,
So that I think is a bit unethical, and the approach is not right, sir.
right, right. Thank you. Others? Anyone? If you recall, in fact, I would never like to recall this video, but academic point of view we have to recall, because this is something not which is so pleasant for us to recall. You may think that, okay, we need to keep aside emotions and talk about science. I totally agree. I totally agree. There is nothing beyond the science or above science in this world. I totally second the thoughts of many out there in this world. But how about something called as ethics? Have we forgotten the concept of ethics in the name of research, development, application of the same, and eventually making it as a business model? See, the first clipping, what we just saw now, the toxicity test, those dogs were forced to inhale toxic substance, and the aftermath of the result is seizures of the dogs. If you remember, recall, one of the parts of the clipping, the dog was suffering from seizure and ultimately it dies. Now, where are we heading towards? Is the fundamental question. For the sake of argument, one may ask me, or do you mean to say that human beings should be included in these kinds of clinical trials? See, I'm not sitting here to advocate that. I would like to repeat myself over and again. Isn't there any other method rather than utilizing such methods what we just saw when we talk about animal experimentation? Or isn't there at least some kind of ethical approach what needs to be done? Okay, you have included guinea pigs, you have included pigs, you have included rabbits, mice, dogs, monkeys, etc., for animal experimentation. But you know are you hereby following the kind of rules and set of rules and regulations what needs to be used? I think Mr. Sanjay Raj clearly stated that, especially with respect to the wound which was inflicted on the guinea pig, it was inflicted without any kind of local anesthesia or the regular anesthesia at the end of the day. The only thing here is, okay, let us inflict the wound and let us try and apply the formula which in turn is under process, and let us see what kind, whether the wound would heal, or or will there be any kind of side effects on the basis of the formula what that particular laboratory is coming out with. I agree. Ultimately, these kinds of research are being done for the welfare of science, medical science, for a particular pharmaceutical company to come out with a particular drug. See, talk about India. India is the gateway of the pharmacy to the entire globe, especially to the Western world. The quantum of medicines what India produces, I'm pretty sure all of you would agree with me without any second thought about it. None other country basically produces so much of medicines, what we, the Indian pharmaceutical industry, we produce. Are we just looking into one particular direction that is, making money out of it by inflicting pain, whether is it necessary pain or unnecessary pain as per section 11 of the PC Act 1960? See, all these questions do linger in my mind whenever I look at this particular, piece of video. The obvious question is, don't we have any law? Yes, we have. That is why, we have assembled virtually for us to understand where does India stand when it comes to ethical approaches towards animal experimentation through the lens of, intellectual property rights. See, I'm not sitting here, here to talk about, what is IP, what are the basic essentials of IP. I'm pretty sure all of us know, including me here, that what are the basic essentials of IP, what is patentable invention, what is not patentable invention. All those, I think, all of you know, without any second, doubt, thought or doubt about it. We are touching upon a very unconventional topic called as animal experimentation. We might have heard here and there, okay, India is one amongst those few nations wherein the entire, concept of cosmetic testing on animals is totally banned. Absolutely. It is one of those, tremendous job what India has done. It is totally, banned, and any kind of import of cosmetics which is tested on animals, usage of the same, procurement of the same, is totally banned. India is one amongst those nations. So are we happy enough that, we have banned the cosmetic testings on animals, there ends our job, and, we can go ahead with the other kinds of, experiments whatever is being done in the laboratory? Now, let us get back to, my presentation before you, and let us, continue with respect to that of, the topic. Just give me a moment. Okay, so I would like you to, take through this particular quote by none other than Mahatma Gandhi. He says, the greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated. The greatness, when we talk about greatness, are we hereby referring to economical greatness or moral greatness? you know Again, India is a developing nation. Everyone knows it's the sixth largest economy. It was fourth, now we have come back to being the sixth largest economy. Again, it is brilliant. Being a sixth largest economy out of 196 odd countries is not a joke. But where are we with respect to that of moral progress? Now, again, it would be wrong on my part that just because, with respect to that of animal experimentation, India basically is lagging behind. I wouldn't make that kind of sweeping statement before you. On the other hand, are we well equipped enough to hereby treat the cases of cruelty against animals in a stringent way is another question to be answered. India has Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960, number one. India has Wildlife Protection Act 1972. India has ABC rules, that is animal birth control rules. India has slaughterhouses rules. India has rules regarding the animal experimentation. Now, moving ahead further, what is this regulated permissibility model? Again, when we talk about regulated permissibility model, it says that India rejects both absolute prohibition and unrestricted usage. Now, on one hand, India is, basically trying to balance its act. We cannot, being a developing nation and trying to be a developed nation by year 2047, as the central government, tries to make us believe that by 2047 we would be a super nation, superpower nation. Basically, India being a developing nation doesn't believe that, okay, let us eradicate all kinds of animal experimentation and let us pull in money, or on the basis of research and development, so that all the experimentations basically is being done on the basis of cell culture, by taking the cell from the human body. That requires lots and lots of money. That requires lots of money. It's not that easy as theoretically I'm trying to tell you, being before you virtually, and say that, okay, let us shut all the experimentation and try and put in money. Point number two. And on the other hand, in order to balance the animal suffering, it says we have to minimize the quantum of pain what is being inflicted towards an animal which is a laboratory animal, because our whole concentration here is on the laboratory animals. Because ultimately today's topic is leaning towards what? Leaning towards the ethical approaches towards animal experimentation in India through the lens of intellectual property. Now, when we talk about the basic fundamentals of intellectual property, it says newness, non-obviousness, usefulness, industrial application, blah blah blah. All those is fine, but ultimately, what happens here is India is in a catch-9 situation where we have central piece of legislations, especially called as Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. Because section 11, section 14, section 15, we'll come to section 14 in a while, where it says that a pragmatic approach needs to be taken care, where experimentation is conditional necessity, where in order to benefit humans, animal or plant life must explicitly outweigh the ethical costs. Fantastic. Moving ahead further, as I was referring to section 14 a few seconds ago, here is section 14 of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. Now, what does it say? Why should there be an experimentation with respect to the laboratory animals? Number one, advancement of knowledge. Number two, life preservation. Number three, disease mitigation. Now, when we talk about advancement of knowledge is a never ending process. Some of you are students of science or were students of science. Some of you are students of arts or any other stream. And you remember, at least in our middle school or high school, we did have a small laboratory experiment of dissecting a cockroach or a frog. Now, why was it being done? It was being done in order to understand what exactly is there in the body of that particular species, to understand the essentials of that particular skill, or that particular exercise of dissecting of an animal. Life preservation is again one of the most important aspects. Now, when we talk about life preservation, The recent pandemic, what we all went through around 4 to 5 years ago, we got to know, we did understand, including, countries like United States of America, that look, science is a never ending process. Research is a never ending process, especially with respect to what? Especially with respect to pure science. Now, this can be taken care only on the basis of experiments, which in turn should be conducted, or which needs to be conducted on a continuous basis. But the question which arises here is, at what cost? At the cost of infliction of unnecessary pain towards animals is the question, wherein there is no straightforward or a straight jacket formula which can be applied and say that this is right and this is wrong. Number three, disease mitigation. Targeted research combating diseases. When we talk about disease mitigation, now in the video what we just saw a couple of minutes ago, which started with the toxicology test and the reaction over that particular animal where the toxicology test was conducted, whether was it successful, up to what an extent those fumes could be given, and direct consumption of the liquid into the stomach of those animals. Now again, whether we talk about advancement of knowledge, life preservation, disease mitigation, there are, at least in India, there are a set of rules and regulations where we need to follow, and it is statutorily permitted, with respect to the animal experimentation. Now, when we talk about these statutory rules, wherein in order to have a balance at the end of the day, the breeding of and experiments on animals control and supervision rules 1998, as you can see on my slide, there are institutional compliance. Number one, there needs to be registration. Number two, ethical review. Number three, care standards. Now, when we talk about the mandatory statutory registration for all establishments breeding or using animals, there needs to be a registration under this particular rule. Ethical review, formal evaluation of the morality and necessity of the proposed research. See, this is very important. Now, when we talk about any experiment, why do we conduct an experiment? In order to have an outcome. Now, we are all, some of us are students of research, right? Now, before we start with a research, what is that what we keep in our mind? A hypothesis. Now, what is hypothesis here? Hypothesis is a statement. In the due course of your research, at the end of the research, you will get to know whether the hypothesis what you had formulated was right or wrong. Now, what happens if your hypothesis were to be wrong? Do you mean to say that your entire research is, useless? No, not at all. Now, similarly here, there needs to be an ethical review. The review committee will sit down and, review that what is the, necessity, what is the outcome or the probable outcome, and whether this particular registration which is being done by an individual or a company, basically is it towards advancement of knowledge alone, or are they coming out with any kind of experiment in order to come out with a drug which may preserve the life of an animal or a human or a plant, or is it being done in order to mitigate the disease which in turn is being seen with respect to human being or animal or a plant? Now all these things, basically, the blueprint of this particular rule takes care. Care standards, strict uniform requirements for the housing, hygiene and general welfare. uh, I'm just taken aback. I always think some people may call me cynical whenever I question the so-called care standards what we basically take care. I'll give you one simple example. One simple example is with respect to that of the ABC. Now, when we talk about the ABC, animal birth control, rules, under animal birth control rules, we have ABC centers. In ABC center, where a particular, say example, a dog, which is being sent to be neutered, so that the possibility of it being littering the puppies basically comes down. The rules and regulations are so clear that this is the hygiene which needs to be maintained, this is the pre-op procedure, post-op procedure, this is the anesthesia procedure, this is the quantum of anesthesia which needs to be given, rehabilitation, isolation. Trust me, out of say 10 ABC centers, only one or two maintain the essential guidelines. Rest of it, they don't bother at all. There is no dearth of rules and regulations in our country. Trust me, there is no dearth of it at all. There is no dearth of law in our country. The only problem is the implementation of these laws. Now, when we talk about the oversight diagnostic, when we, with reference to that of animal experimentation, central oversight, wherein the central government basically comes into picture, and the institutional oversight by the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. Key functions of the CPCSCA is registering establishment, inspecting facilities, enforcing national standards and policy formation, and approval authority, primary authority for large animals, example, non-human primates, dogs and equines. Now, when we talk about the IAEC, the functions of it is the first line of ethical review, monitoring scientific necessity with the local establishment, and approval authority with respect to small animals like rodents, rabbits, etc. Now, this is what I was referring to with respect to human cell cultures, with respect to low phylogenetic scale, high cognitive complexity. The graded ethical sensitivity spectrum, if we were to understand, human cell cultures, if the experimentation is being done on the basis of the human cell cultures, then there is no requirement of, animal oversight. The physical body of an animal need not be there. Now, when we talk about that of the economical aspects of human cell cultures, trust me, it runs into billions of dollars. For a country like India, which is a budget deficit in most of the cases, how do we expect the government to hereby set aside a huge sum of money in order to conduct experiments, whether we are talking about the government run laboratories, or when we talk about the private agencies out there? So the regulatory burden scales directly with the perceived sensitivity and cognitive complexity of the species, ensuring the most ethically sensitive research faces the most rigorous national scrutiny. Now, in a very layman manner, how do we understand this? The ultimate goal of any animal experimentation is the outcome, is the result. The result, what you get by usage of a particular insect, say example, a cockroach. Now, when we talk about usage of cockroach and usage of an elephant, right? Both are, both have lives. Now tell me, if the desired result, what we get when we use a cockroach, is something similar to the desired result, what we use when we use an elephant, which is better to use? Whether is it cockroach or an elephant? Obviously, it is a cockroach, right? Now, when we talk about the desired result, now desired result depends upon cycles of experiments at the end of the day. Now, the desired results may not be there, in one particular experiment, at once. There might be multiple experimentations, clinical trials. See, when we talk about clinical trials, I let me give you a very small example. Say, Suven Pharma Limited in India. Suven Pharma, if I if I'm not wrong, correct me if I go wrong, Suven Pharma, for the past 8 to 9 years or so, they are into clinical, research with respect to a drug which they probably feel that they may come out for a particular, say, disease called as dementia. And it is believed that it would take another 5 to 6 years minimum for the initial clinical trial to be, started. Now imagine the quantum of people who work. Imagine the quantum of money, what is required. Imagine the quantum of, expertise, what we look into when we are talking about a particular drug which may or may not cure a disease called as dementia in human beings. Now, obviously, this is one of these small examples which I just gave you, a random example basically. But here, the reason I'm talking about these examples is what is important for us. The important thing for us is the desired result. This is important. The 4 R's cyclical wheel. Basically, there are only three. India has added the fourth one. Number one, replacement. Number two, reduction. Number three, refinement. Number four, rehabilitation. Replacement. Now, if there is a particular replacement, wherein example, as I just told you a couple of seconds ago, the desired result, what you get on the basis of an experiment, what you conduct on a cockroach, if it is similar to that of an elephant, obviously you got to replace cockroach with that of an elephant. Right. So similarly here, if a particular, desired result, what is expected, or, where there is involvement of a human cell culture or the computational model, then why is there a requirement for you to utilize a particular laboratory animal is the fundamental question. Number two, reduction. Directive to employ the absolute minimum number of animals necessary to achieve statistically valid scientific results. Now, as far as possible, see to it that the cluster sampling what you take, is minimal. In order to see, again, I'm sticking on to the word desired result. If the desired result is positive by usage of one particular laboratory animal, what is the use of you utilizing 100 laboratory animals? Just because for me to have a knack of it or to get a hang of it, if I keep on experimenting over the animal, just because my company pumps in money and I need to have expertise and I need to build a huge team of mine and I utilize number of animals, then that is not acceptable at all. Number three, refinement. Minimization of pain, distress. Usage of mandatory anesthesia, selecting the lowest possible species, like example, mice. Like example, with respect to hamsters. Like example, a guinea pig. Now, again, we saw usage of dogs in that video. We saw usage of mice. We saw usage of guinea pig. We saw usage of monkey. Look at the quantum of pain what these animals undergo in the name of experimentation, in the name of having a right over that particular drug through the lens of intellectual property. Now, again, I totally understand with respect to medical procedures, you cannot have a total, intellectual procedure, protection at the end of the day. I totally agree. But when we talk about, that of the intellectual property rights with respect to that of conduction of experiments or, the process patenting, what we talk at the end of the day, please remember, it is the responsibility of the state, number one, and number two, it is the responsibility of the agency, whether it is the agency which is sponsored by the state or whether it is the agency which is, sponsored by the private players out there. It is the responsibility for them to follow these four cyclical wheel. Number four, rehabilitation. Rehabilitation basically is added by India. Now, when we talk about rehabilitation, again, as I was giving you a very small example about the animal birth control, where pre-op procedure, post-op procedure, something similar to that of human beings. When we get admitted to a hospital for a procedure, isn't there a pre-op procedure where all the vitals are checked, necessary blood test is being conducted, necessary tests are being conducted, then operation is conducted, post-op procedure, observation in ICU or CCU as the case may be, and then again necessary painkillers are given, necessary exercises are being given, psychological tests are being conducted. These are the rehabilitation process. Something similar to the rehabilitation process what we follow for us the human beings by the medical center. Similarly, rehabilitation process needs to be followed to those laboratory animals for it to survive. Please remember, the mantra here is not to see to it that the laboratory animal which is taken, ultimately we make sure that it gets killed or it dies. Majority of the time there is always a probability where those laboratory animals can be rehabilitated and finally let free after it undergoes all the rehabilitation procedure, after being inflicted with, again, pain. What kind of pain here? Necessary pain. Why is it necessary? It is necessary because we are trying to achieve something. What is that? What we are trying to achieve? Number one, advancement of knowledge, disease mitigation, etc., etc. Moving ahead further, what are the procedural checklists? Rules of engagement. Mandatory anesthesia, number one. As far as possible, when we talk about, the anesthesia part, it is mandated that either local anesthesia needs to be given depending upon the kind of experiment, or, a full anesthesia which needs to be given. Humane termination. Now, again, when we talk about humane termination, the aftermath of the result, especially we saw the seizures in that particular video, what that particular dog underwent. There is no probability of the dog being normal. Then at that particular point of time, there needs to be a humane termination. That is, the death should be painless to the animal. Minimum usage of animals, humanity in conduct, strict housing standards by following the environmental conditions, hygiene, aftercare as specified by the CPCS EA. The investigator's duty of care encompasses housing, hygiene, and long-term welfare, not just the experiment procedure. Now, what are the progressive reforms reducing biological dependence? Number one, institutional reform in education. Cosmetic ban, again, I've just mentioned about the cosmetic ban, and the new drug rule, which talks about the formal statutory acceptance of non-animal testing methods and human-based predictive models in the official clinical drug approval process. Now, any kind of change begins where there is an involvement of a particular institute which basically talks about education. And here, when we talk about education, those institutes, universities, research centers, they are, they are the institutes wherein, we try to imbibe the basic foundation of alternative approaches towards the animal experimentations. Example, the Medical Council of India and the UGC have phased out animal use in teaching, replacing them with stimulations, computer aided learning modules. As I was, telling you, if you remember when we were in primary school or the middle school, we did have the dissection of cockroaches. Now again, if the desired result is getting to me, if I'm witnessing the desired results through the computer models or the learning modules, why should I use a real cockroach in front of me and kill the cockroach and try to hereby dissect its body to understand what is there in its body? Moving ahead further, the paradigm shift, strategic obsolescence. The ultimate goal of the framework is its own obsolescence. India is strategically shifting from managing biological proxies to scaling post-animal predictive technology. Now, when we talk about the post-animal predictive technology, this is with reference to the human-centric models. Of course, when we talk about human-centric model, let us not forget with respect to the artificial intelligence as well, whether it is artificial intelligence and computational modeling, organ on chip, in vivo testing. This is the self-explanatory, part of this particular slide, wherein when we talk about the in vivo testing, utilizing human-derived cells and tissues to directly and accurately predict human psychological responses. But again, this requires a lot of money with respect to research and development. Organ on chip, advanced microfluid devices engineered to stimulate the complex psychological and mechanical responses of entire human organ system. AI and computational modeling is leveraging artificial intelligence and human pathway based systems to replace traditional biological assays with pure computation. Right. So quickly, if I were to take you through the middle path of the ethical science, statutory framework, as I said, the PCA Act 1960 and the 1998 rules with respect to animal experimentation, dual level oversight, central government comes into picture and the local body comes into picture. Comprehensive ethic, India is the nation which added the fourth R. Fourth R refers to the rehabilitation. Human centric future, guided by ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, MCI, UGC. The system actively derives a transition towards advanced alternatives like AI and organ chip technology. Right. So I think with this particular note, I would like to end my presentations. Now you're welcome to opine. If you have any queries, you're most welcome to do so, because I have another session to attend in another 10 minutes or so. Thank you so much.
Sir, I have a question.
Please go ahead,
Is
sir.
is there any definition that differentiates between laboratory animals and other animals?
Now, again, when we talk about laboratory animals and other animals, animals basically, if you were to go by the definition under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, it says apart from human beings and plants, the rest are animals.
Okay.
But India is one amongst those nations wherein which allows specific kinds of animals like mice, rodents, hamster, rabbit with respect to the laboratory animals, and guinea pigs.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Others, any question?
Anyone have any questions?
Not a question, I'm just like,
Sorry.
like how are we incentivizing these other procedures, this
How
traditional
are we?
incentivizing these other procedures, like non-traditional methods, like instead of animal testing, they're right now using AI algorithms or like in vitro testing, right? How is the Indian Patent Office incentivizing these systems? Like recently this year we
Now,
had this theme of
now
sport.
again, uh, now again, when we talk about the alternative approaches, as I said, let me repeat. Uh, there needs to be a separate budgeting which needs to be done here, because whether we talk about the Indian Patent Office under the Patent Act of India, or when we talk about the involvement of ICMR or Medical Council of India, MCI, or say UGC, University Grants Commission. Now please remember, when we look into the alternative approaches, uh, if I'm not wrong, subject to correction, if I'm not wrong, till today, till this moment, there is no separate budgetary allocation for that of the alternative approaches when we talk about the animal experimentation.
Totally, I know. What I was concerned is like, how do we like lower the barrier of entry? So, like these technologies get more commercialized or patented more easily within India, because if we get more people doing it for like less amount, since you mentioned
Correct.
like
Correct. You're absolutely right. Now, for that to happen, don't we require a lot of money?
yeah,
Are we economically so strong wherein we tend to spend billions of dollars like that of the United States of America or China? Again, ultimately, it boils down to money, funding. See, we have CSIR funding, we have UGC funding, we have funding by private agencies, we have funding by the central government. Now, is it sufficient enough for us to set up those laboratories with respect to the alternative approaches? And going by the taxation system in our country, you know very well, how good we are at taxing or procurement of these products. Now again, GST plays an important role when we talk about procurement of sophisticated computing systems, softwares. Hello, can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just only recommend policies, but if we don't have like the
Now
actual
see, may I
cash.
know who am I talking to?
This is Sibiraj Murugesan.
Okay, Mr. Raj. See, that is what the irony of our country is, as I told you. See, I work for an organization called People for Animals Public Policy Foundation, based out of New Delhi. As I was giving you an example of animal birth control with reference to the rehabilitation part, what I told you, of course, nothing to do with animal experimentation, but all to do with neutering of animals there. It's called as animal birth control. The title itself tells us clearly that this particular controlling agency is set up in order to prevent animals from giving birth. The scenario is so pathetic when we talk about the animal birth control centers in our country, where it is run by the governmental agencies. The government has given licenses to the private players to run, and crores of rupees are being spent on the paper. I'm telling you, on the paper. In reality, if you have time, please visit one of the ABC centers in your vicinity. You will understand the apathy, you will understand the pathetic situation what we witness when we talk about a particular ABC center, which is animal birth control centers. And we are talking big things about rehabilitation. Let us stick to the basics first, and then add another r and say that okay, India has introduced, okay, fair enough, well and good. India has introduced something called as the fourth cyclical in the cyclical wheel called as rehabilitation, after reduction, replacement, etc. But where is the funding for that, for the pre experiment and the post experiment? Somebody has put a text.
Really, that's so sad, to be honest. Uh,
Is I cannot read the text. Is there some
yeah, John
text?
Speaker is saying that we can't even walk 600 meters around such centers by local government, all smelling, howling, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Where is the minimum, kind of, say, standards what we are hereby talking about when we talk about these kinds of centers? Where is the minimum standard? Are we hereby maintaining such standards? And if you feel that this is an exaggeration, and I request you, go and visit one of those centers. You will actually agree to my thought process and my that's why I said in the beginning of my presentation, few people may call me cynical, That's not being cynical, that's being realistic. That is how the procedures are when we talk about our country.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead. Pradeep Kaur. Yes, ma'am. Please go
Yes.
ahead.
Sir, as we have the concept of human rights for the humans, so is there any concept of like animal rights in any law?
Okay. I think Miss Pradeep Kaur, did you join bit late for the session?
No, sir. Yeah, 5 minutes late.
The starting of my presentation, the opening note was on the basis of animal rights when compared to the human rights. Uh, I was referring to the AWBI versus Nagaraja judgment of the year 2014. I suggest you to read few lines of AWBI versus Nagaraja, where for the honorable Supreme Court for the first time ever in our country basically bought animals under the larger ambit of Article 21 of the Constitution. Now, the happiness in the minds of the animal activists died down immediately in the year 2015, because the same honorable Supreme Court overruled the judgment which was rendered by the same court. Of course, it was a different bench altogether, but the same court. And in 2015, it said you cannot bring in animals under the larger ambit of Article 21 of the Constitution. So there is no fundamental, right, or the concept of right to life for animals in our country, Ms. Prabdeep.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah,
As
please.
you mentioned about the Act of PC Act 1960, so
Mhm.
when the organizations or the private companies doing the experiment on the animals, so is there any law which is criminalizing the act of that, like
Of
the process?
course, Section 11 of the PCA Act, Section 35 of the PCA Act, Section 14 talks about the rules and regulations, and of course, 1998 rules regarding the experimentations. Because PCA Act itself is a substantive law.
Sir, it deals with only the compensation, or there is any kind of another imprisonment or something?
Unfortunately, there is no concept of imprisonment, in our country with respect to, say, atrocities against animals. And please remember, when we talk about atrocities against animals, purely under 1960 Act, say example, kicking, beating, overriding an animal, the compensation amount, I'm ashamed to tell you, trust me, I'm ashamed to tell you, is mere 50 rupees. This is the, reality. Reality bites.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone?
Sir, can I?
Yes, Mr. Sanjay Raj.
Like, sir, I'm currently pursuing my degree in B Farm. So we are taught with the simulations of the animals,
You
like the
are taught with
video simulations.
simulations on animals. Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes, simulation. But the same college provides the animal to the masters for their practical experimentation. So, like day before yesterday, they were doing some experiment on the mice, where they were treated with the drug and they were allowed to swim in the water. Like they
Okay.
have made the artificial pond where they were made the mice to swim. So they were discussing that after the practical, they're gonna kill the mice. Like now the practical is over, so they should be killed now. So don't you think that the mice could have been rehabbed for the recovery, or like colleges or the some regulations may check that what
Going
are the.
by, yes, Mr. Sanjay Raj, going by the thumb rule, there needs to be a rehabilitation of that particular mice which was used. Now again, who would go complain, take up the matter before the court for the negligence which was showcased by that particular school or college or a research center, right? Now one may say, okay, it's a mice, it's a rodent. See, it's a rodent, I totally agree, but in the eyes of law, it's an animal. It has a life. And it is being used for a particular experiment for a desired outcome, a desired result. That is why I said, the so-called fourth R, what India has introduced, is farce.
Sorry for the interruption. Sorry for the interruption. I had this idea. Like they have Pashu Aadhaar for cows, right? Why don't they issue any identification certificates for their specific animals provided to particular lab and they follow up in their entire life cycle, like through photos
Now,
are giving them updates. Like
again, Pashu Aadhaar with respect to cows, buffaloes, other milching animals, which basically, gives us milk, which basically is hereby exploited for the consumption of milk and hereby try to, create a business model. Now, when we talk about creating of a business model, like one of the biggest business model of milk in our country is the white revolution called as Amul, which came into picture, right? Joseph Kurian is the person who people remember when we talk about the white revolution. And when we talk about the laboratory animals, if you clearly note with respect to the 1998 or rules and regulations regarding the laboratory animals, there needs to be registration of those animals. And again, similar to that of the milching animals, there is no probability for you to give a particular certificate. But what is the quantum of animal, what you are using, laboratory animals, what you are using, and there needs to be an assessment, and that particular assessment is being done, whether is it necessary, whether this particular experiment is necessary or not, whether would it fetch us the desired result or not, or is it being done for the heck of doing it, for the sake of doing it or not. All these are the important task of the executive authorities, who are the governmental employees, to come out with their assessment. And only once they certify that, okay baba, XYZ research center, basically, or a pharmaceutical company has come out with this application, so let us certify them that okay, you can conduct the experiment on the basis of the 3 R's or the 4 R's what we have come out with, and it is your responsibility to submit a report. That is humanly impossible for us to certify each and every other laboratory animals. Like when you, if you are comparing with that of the Pashu Aadhaar.
even then we can't, like if the animal is outside of the system, they will still continue to do it, like put some monthly animals
Absolutely.
in register. Like just keeping like the prolonged suffering. There is no rehabilitation. It's like better to be euthanized than like being alive.
There is no concept of rehabilitation unless and until here and there somewhere, when we talk about the multi-billionaire billion industry with respect to animal experimentation, or a pharmaceutical industry like Johnson and Johnson or Merck Pharmaceuticals, they would take care because that is the statutory requirement. But a small scale research centers or universities or colleges or schools, or small scale pharmaceutical industries, the concept of rehabilitation is something beyond imagination. Because post care, pre care, post care, keeping them in a observation, it requires a lot of medical equipments, number one. Number two, it requires in hiring veterinarians who are experts in critical illness. Hiring, say example, if I were to give you a small example, say a dog in that particular video we saw, which was administered toxic fumes. Now you need a toxicology expert to hereby rehabilitate it. What is the cost which is involved? Can a normal veterinarian who has studied veterinary sciences, can he deal with the toxicology? Something similar to that of a normal mbbs doctor, can he deal with toxicology over human beings? A toxic expert should be hired whose specialization is in toxicology. So something similar. So it doesn't come handy. It requires a lot of infrastructure, number one, and lot of expertise, number two, and number three, lot of money. For us to create that, you require a lot of money. I hope I'm being sensible here when I give you this answer. Yes, Sanjay Raj,
Yes, sir.
am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. If there are no more questions, can we call it a day?
Guys, any other questions? Okay, so thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. Hope everyone have understood the ethics we need to follow for animals and how we can treat animals and the differences between laboratory animals and other kind of animals. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, and I thank my good friend Mr. Sanjay Bafna for inviting me to address you all, and thank you to the moderator, and thank you all the participants for joining this evening. We should be in touch, and any kind of sessions with respect to say animal protection, animal welfare, I'm always there, and I think let's hope for a better world, with reference to the animals. As Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, the moral progress is judged by the way its animals are treated. Good evening, all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.